Our first speaker this evening is Carrie McKenna. And if I say your name incorrectly, please forgive me.
Thank you to the Board of Education and Administration of King's for allowing me to take a few minutes of your time. During the summer of 2020, a member of my neighborhood referred to my adopted son with a racist and vulgar term. I have done my best over the past 10 months to believe this is not a vast mindset within our community, only to be reminded of how diversity is viewed by many. While attending one of the superintendent community sessions yesterday, a parent, booster, and community member said, and I am paraphrasing, that our district needs to stop teaching about others and how each population has differences, and that we should just focus on how we are all the same. While this comment showed her unconscious bias, her second paraphrased comments crossed into racist rhetoric. She commented on how our schools should get back to teaching true, real history and literature, and not focusing on learning how to read informational texts for understanding and enlightenment. She went on to say this would allow kids to learn where they come from. However, my son has not, nor will he ever be represented through history or literature from generations ago. After a few seconds pause, she feebly attempted to cover up her rhetoric by saying, "Oh, and Black kids." She let me know my son is not important. Mr. Ackerman, you have done an amazing job at leading King's through an incredibly hard transition period. I thank you. However, Board of Education members, we are on the cusp of an incredibly important decision. You will decide if we become known as a community who embraces diversity to help us grow, or turns their backs on those of us fighting for our children to be included. You will select our next superintendent. Please consider choosing one who values and promotes diversity, inclusion, and acceptance at first and foremost. Diversity and cultural competence must be a priority and not an afterthought that is chased by those of us who already believe in it. We need to bring the cause to everyone, even when it makes them uncomfortable. Our districts, our kids, our country deserves it. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Ms. McKenna. Next on the participation list is Mrs. Sheeter. Oh, I think you're next.
Might twist your mic.
Thanks to the board and administration for being here and for being flexible in your schedule for your colleague who needed that. Administrative guideline 3000 for professional staff says that one of the primary purposes of the school is to create an environment that will permit students to grow and develop, and therefore it's important for the environment to be protected from interference by corrosive and disruptive forces that influences that don't substantially contribute to the learning process. It says that politics do not contribute to such a thing and can be divisive and disruptive and distracting, and therefore have no place in the school setting. It further regulates that policy and literature supporting any particular issue or point of view inside the school buildings is prohibited. It states that political material, including posters supporting one or more specific issue or particular point of view, shall not be displayed within the schools or on the school-owned property. The policy also states in policy manual referring to staff ethics that the educational program and successful operation of the district require the staff to maintain high levels of integrity, and they do this in their working relationships and in their performance of professional duties. It says that staff members should refrain from using his or her position of power or public property for partisan political purposes. I cannot think of a more divisive, partisan, political campaign than the Black Lives Matter organization and campaign. And yet, the Black Lives Matter flags are flown in at least 2 of our high school teachers' classrooms. The school district and administration has also used the symbols for Black Lives Matter in publications, particularly digital. It's been brought to my attention that at least one teacher who flies not only the Black Lives Matter flag, but also a gay pride flag, refuses to fly the American flag. I'm told that the teacher, when asked why the American flag was not flown in the classroom, responded something to the effect of that the American flag does not represent all Americans. The Pledge of Allegiance is to be led in our district each and every day, and every student should have an opportunity to say the Pledge of Allegiance, not be forced to. It's our custom in this country that when we do so, we stand to the flag, face it, and put our hands over our hearts. And I don't know how that is to be accomplished if there is not a flag in the classroom. Out of respect for this board's policies and public participation at board meetings, I've refrained from using the teachers' names. But it is my sincere hope that an administrator or a board member will reach out to me directly for that information so this can be fully investigated and addressed. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Shear. Next is Ms. Karen Burton.
I also heard from 3 separate sources, people who don't even know each other, that there are at least 2 classrooms at Kings High School that are displaying BLM flags. One of those is a 10th grade English classroom. That room has several rainbow flags and a BLM flag, and as Colleen mentioned, no USA flag. And when the student asked why no USA flag, the teacher said, well, that flag doesn't represent everybody. That same 10th grade English teacher has the stamped book by Jason Reynolds and Ibram Kendi on his desk. The teacher's response aligns with everything taught in Stamped. Last month, I raised concerns about this book, and I requested that all board members read the book or reread the book and reconsider its appropriateness for high school students. And now I have a few questions. I want to know, has every board member read this book?
In process.
Is that something that needs to be researched?
I'm in the process of reading it.
Thank you. There's more than one board member. So I think what I heard Stacy say when he introduced this segment of participation from the community was if an answer could be given today, that it would be given, and if it needed to be researched, we could give an answer later on. So is that something, Stacy, that needs to be?
So if my colleagues are not answering, then it needs to be answered later on.
Okay, thank you. I also want to know, it needs to be researched. What is the unique educational goal this book addresses that cannot be achieved by using a book that is not so blatantly anti-Christian, anti-American, and racist? And the final question, will additional approval be required before this book is used in other classes within the district? I know that it was approved for the 2 English classes that are mostly 11th and 12th graders. I want to know if we decide to use it for 9th graders, 10th graders, 6th graders. will additional approval by the board be needed before that's done? And I assume that's something that needs to be researched also, Stacy?
That is correct, Ms.
Okay.
Burton.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Next is Ms. Brenda Koch. I hope I'm saying your name wrong. Koch. Or saying it right. I'm sorry.
Thanks for the opportunity to address the board tonight. I'd like to share with you my support of your decision to approve the novel Stamped for use in these schools. I think it's really important, and I'm really, really happy that you guys are going this direction. So thank you. I watched the school board meeting from last month where Mrs. Burton spoke about the Stamped book and her concerns about the book and the alleged concerns of other parents and students in that book, who, according to Mrs. Burton, not only are concerned about the book, but don't feel safe coming to talk to this board. I felt compelled to come and offer a different point of view to the board after listening to that. Last week, the student body elected 2 females as prom king and queen. This was obviously an active collective decision made by the student body, which shows they are absolutely not afraid to take a stand for things that matter to them. And they are far more open and understanding. They're appreciating, accepting, and celebrating the differences and the different point of views of members of the community and of this school district, much more so than some members of our community might choose to believe. I admire this generation for their thirst of knowledge and understanding, their strength to stand up for what they believe in, particularly when it's something that the older generations and past generations might not feel acceptable or even be open to considering. As I started reading Stamped, I was inspired to research what I was reading. Through my research, I found the same points echoed many, many times by many authors and many documents throughout the years and ages. It's clear that these are not lies. Many points and insights often shared, they're just not sites that are often shared in the mainstream, and that's really sad. Overall, the book was very inspiring in terms of sparking important conversations, research, and critical thinking about racism, anti-racism, segregationist, assimilationist, and other things discussed in the book. What a wonderful educational resource that truly inspires our students to think, to research, to understand, and critically look at things from a different perspective than we've traditionally been taught and that they may have personally experienced. There's a whole world out there many of us have never and will never have the opportunity to experience. Really teaching our young adults to think, assess, understand, versus memorize what they're told, what many of us have been told for decades and centuries, is the best educational gift we can give our students. I was also pleased in my research to find more than 50 educational resources online about the book Stamped, because educators across this country are embracing, continually broadening and improving ourselves, our friends, our neighbors, and our histories. Thank you to the board for what you do, serving the community. Thank you for approving Stamped and everything that you do.
Thank you, ma'am. Next is Deb, I'm going to say Gill, Miss Gill.
Hello, thanks for listening to what I have to say. And I appreciate what everybody else has said, but I think there's something to be said for tradition. I'm talking about the king and the queen, the queen and the queen, the king and the king. Sorry, but I believe that there are still 2 genders, a male and a female. I think tradition stands for the queen who has a vagina, a king who has a penis and testicles, period. That's the way it should still stand. That is the way God has intended it to be. And anybody who thinks that that's not the case, God love you, and I hope you find Jesus. Thank you.
And lastly, I have a Louise. There's no last name. Oh, Mrs.
I don't know why I'm here tonight, but I have no children that are in the school. Both my children are grown and on their own. I have no grandchildren because both of my boys are single. So I really don't have that much interest as to what's going on in our school district. Or what I should say is I shouldn't be so involved. I have nothing to gain except more gray hair. That's about it. But I can tell you as a first generation Jew born to immigrants, the flag means everything to me, to us, to my mother. My mother did not even become a citizen of the United States till I was a senior in high school in 1963 and 64. So, I mean, to look at America today and what we're doing with our schools today and our education today, including King's being among 613 public schools in the state of Ohio, we are dumbing down our kids. We're teaching them stuff that they don't need to know. We're not teaching them stuff that they do need to know. They get out of school, they don't know anything. They've memorized stuff they don't need to know, and now we're teaching them stuff that is causing problems, racial problems, and everything like that. Being a Jew in a school that didn't have a lot of Jewish people, I never felt like anybody was making fun of me or not accepting me. It was wonderful. And I look today and I see what's going on, and it's just sad. And I hate to say this, but I think the school board, I think the administration, I think the teachers unions have a lot to do with the downgrading, the dumbing down of this next generation. I am 75 years old. I'm not going to be here that much longer. So whatever happens is going to happen. But I just think it's sad for the younger people here and the people who have kids here that their kids are not getting the education that they deserve. There is so much more that these kids need to learn before they go to college, and then they get a college degree and it means absolutely nothing anymore. When I went to school, it meant everything. You worked hard to get to that point. And like I said, having a mother where I took her immigration papers every year to the post office to make sure that she wouldn't be deported. And she, in my heart of hearts, was one of the best Jews I know and best Americans. When she became a citizen of the United States, she became it on July the 3rd. And she said, when I die, I want to die on July the 3rd. 40 some odd years later, she died on July the 3rd so she could be buried on July the 4th because she was a citizen of the United States. And she made that promise the day she raised her hand to become a citizen. Today, I'm not proud of the America we have today. And I grew up around a lot of immigrants and stuff like that. I'm telling you, we're disappointed. And the other thing is, I was talking to somebody earlier about talking to our children in kindergarten and first and second and third grade. If you're not happy with the sex that you were born with, we're going to have a counselor or a therapist here, and you can talk to us and we can help you transition. If that is true, that is sad. Thank you.
That concludes this evening's public participation.